Before we start the episode with Coach Dave Crook, just wanted to say thank you to all our sponsors, Parkside Brewing, ATO B-Ball, and PGC Basketball. Without you guys and your support, I'd have to dig into my own wallet and help get this podcast going. If anybody out there is interested in sponsoring and partnering with us, give us a shout, send us a DM, send us an email at hoopsjourney@gmail.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share the word. Dave Crook, legendary coach, been around a long time, since 1978, I believe, and kind of a full circle journey for him, starting in the Winnipeg, Wesmen area and finding himself back being athletic director, many different roles across Canada at the U Sport level. He probably actually has seen U Sport, CIS, and CAAU, which is not a shot at his age, just as it is as his experience. And just a really good guy, a guy that I think a lot of people would have liked to have played for. Great episode, lots of great insight, lots of good laughs and stories, and more to come. As usual, thanks for tuning in. If you have questions, comments, please reach out and enjoy this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 114, if you can believe people are still listening. And if you've made it this far, you'll want to tune in today. When I text this gentleman, I said what Michael Grange wants, Michael Grange gets, but he's definitely been a guy that we've had on the radar for a while now, and happy that he was able to come back from the lake for the weekend and live in the good life and sit down with us. A guy who kind of, like, when you know and read about his story, is almost full circle here in terms of starting and where he is right now, finding himself as the athletic director at the University of Winnipeg. Has to look over a couple guys that I know in Larkins and Rainbow. Poor man, that would be enough to make me want to retire. But between that, everywhere in between, like I said at the start, you know, I think you've probably seen CIAU, CIS, and U Sport, all three. We have none other than Mr. Dave Crook with us today. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited for the opportunity.
Cool. And we're excited for you to share your story and just chat a little more. You know, I know listening to Michael's episode was kind of humbling for you, and you know, I think as a coach and someone, when you're connected with people and you don't take the time for yourself to pause and think about the impact that you've really had on people, and just talk about just maybe hearing that and what that felt like. I'm sure maybe he said it before, but I think for him to express it that way was pretty cool, because clearly you had a major impact on his life, and you look at his career and how he's panned out. Just a solid human being who's still helping grow the game through his talents. So how did that feel? And how's life for you these days?
Well, it was crazy. You know, at the end, you know, he talks about the people who are influential in his life, and he talks about his wife, who's fair and is amazing. Mm-hmm. And then he lists me next, and I'm sort of like, you know, I don't know, I'm just taken aback, right? I don't even know how to express it. It was, you know, really emotional. But Michael and I are very close, and we've been close for a long, long time. And it's, you know, fantastic. And I remember right at the start when you had Barnaby on, and Barnaby said a lot of the same sort of things, right? And you sort of go, and it's a strange thing about this business, right? Because we often talk about, you know, you don't remember the wins, and you don't remember the losses. You don't remember this, and you don't remember that. And some of that's BS, right? We do remember some of those things, but because you do, right? And you carry those things with you. But what you truly treasure are the relationships and are the people, right? And that connection you have. And, you know, I mean, you know, I coached Barnaby starting in like 94, right? I think.
Be about that.
And,
yeah.
And we literally talk every week, right? Still to this day, right? And, you know, guys from Lethbridge who I literally talk to weekly, you know, same thing. And, you know, Grange, we don't talk as much as we used to. We used to talk weekly, and now we talk less, but we still communicate. I just saw him. I was in Toronto, you know, a month and a half ago. So yeah, those relationships are, you know, critically important to, you know, to who we are, I think. And in the end, it really is the reason that when you reflect on your career and what you've done, those are the things that are really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And my life's great. I got a great life. It's a weird situation, right? I grew up in Winnipeg, inner city, lousy. I was one of those jack of all trades, master of none type of guys. Came to the University of Winnipeg as a student. Didn't know where I was going to go, and then ended up, spending some time with Bruce Enns, and then, I ended up becoming a basketball coach. And now here I am years later, as the athletic director at University of Winnipeg. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about that path at some point. But yeah, it's a crazy story, but it's a great story.
Yeah, good. And how was the lake this weekend? Weather been good out there?
It's been okay. It wasn't as warm as I was hoping, but it was still nice. It was like 25, 26, and got in the water a few times and rode the bike and grilled the steak, so it wasn't so bad.
There you go. My wife's from Saskatoon, and / Prince Albert. So they've got a place north of PA called Candle Lake.
Yeah.
And I swear every year we go, people are like, "Oh, it's been, it doesn't matter. We've tried everywhere between July and August, everywhere. Like you name a week, we've tried it. People, it's been 40 degrees. And then we get there, we get half a lake day on the boat, and then it just gets super cold. And I'm like, they're lying to me out here, I swear. But it's good living though. Even if the weather's not great, you're on the lake and it's a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
For sure. Good.
Pretty lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go back, man. Let's talk about that. Talk about yourself as a young guy, and you've already mentioned Bruce, obviously, but before that, kind of the younger life for yourself growing up, and why basketball was even a thing for you.
Well, I grew up in a sport family, and I love sports, and I love playing sport. And my brothers were older than me, about 8 and 11 years. So it's like I had 3 dads in a way, but these 2 brothers, and they got me engaged, and they exposed me to things that a lot of young guys wouldn't be exposed to. And there's 2 sort of things I think that are critical. One was, coaching was a weird part of my life, right? When I was 12 years old, I coached my first team as a 9-year-old soccer team, because there was a house league soccer league that didn't have a coach. And if they didn't have a coach, they couldn't play. And I was playing little league baseball. So then I coached this 9-year-old soccer team, and I'd never played soccer in my life to that point, right? But I coached this team at 12, and then at 14, I coached little league baseball. And at 16, I coached band and football. And at 18, I coached, my high school basketball team. So my whole life has been coaching, right? Mm-hmm. That's all I've done in my whole life. And in my grade 8 yearbook, my ambition in life, and I think I was either to be the manager or the head coach of the Canadian national basketball team, because at the time, John Restivo, who later was a coach and coached at Ottawa U for a long time, and he was Jack Donahue's manager, and he was my brother's best friend. So I got exposed to the national team when Jack did some camps here in Winnipeg. I got to go shag basketballs, at the East Gym, Bison East at U of M, and to have that in my grade 8 yearbook as my ambition is to, be with the Canadian national team, and then actually to have that experience happen decades later, it's crazy. So, so coaching was always a part of it, and basketball, I just love basketball, right? And I played in high school, and I was not very good, and I was an undersized post, but I was like 6 feet in high school, but I've got a 6'6" wingspan. So even though we didn't understand those kind of things then, I've got long arms. So I was adequate, bad senior men's player. But I loved the game, played a ton of pickup. I'd come to the U of W and play all the time. And when I was really young, like, I don't know, maybe like 1970. So I was about 12. Like I used to go to watch the Bisons play all the time at Bison East, right? And I lived across town, and it would be an hour bus and 2 transfers for me to get there. But I'd sometimes go by myself, across town to go watch the Bisons play in the heyday, and that's like Bob Town and Ted Stowes and Darryl Rumsey. And they were, that was an amazing team. And then Martin Riley in that group, and they were national champions. So like I was 100% a Bison guy my whole life. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out now that, I went to U of W, became the hated the Westies as we were then, and then ended up working with Bruce, coaching here and then full circle coming back, becoming head coach and then AD now. It's a pretty crazy story.
Yeah, it's awesome. What was it early on? Was it the competitive spirit? Was it like you say, you never had anything to do with soccer? Was it just your mind wanting to learn the game and see the kids grow, or was it a combo of it all? Like what was it that was so? Because I mean, that's like, you're making a great point in terms of like to sign your grade 8 yearbook. Like I was like, I'm going to play for the LA Lakers and have a mansion. Like that was my goal. And you're like, no, I'm going to coach the national team. I was like, what? That's pretty unique, right?
Yeah, I just think it was part of. I like the idea. I mean, I never saw myself as being a great athlete, right? I never saw but I love sports so much that I wanted to find a way to be involved and to give back, right? And I was lucky enough to have all these great mentors in my life, my 2 older brothers, and then people who who were teachers and coaches, and they just influenced my life, and they made me realize how important coaching is and how important it was to give back to sport. And then coming to the U of W, as a freshman, I took Bruce's, he taught 2 basketball courses back then. I took both of them. Probably,
you get credits for both too?
Yeah. And they were nice. The best courses of my academic life, right? I wasn't a highly motivated student, but I did really well in his classes. And I don't know why, but he took a shine to me. And so even I used to go to all the games, and I was totally engaged, and I was going to high school games, and I was coaching high school. So then he asked me to do some scouting for him. So I did some scouting where I'd jump in a car, drive to Brandon, go watch somebody, come back, give them a scouting report. And I did that a bunch of times. And I loved the game. I'd been around the game, but I wasn't technically, I didn't know UCLA high post from whatever, flex, I didn't know technical terms and things, so Bruce used me to scout, it sounds braggy, but like he told me just this past winter when I was talking to him, because we were talking about Rainbow's team and what they were doing, and he, was talking about some things, and he said, in the end, or maybe he told Rainbow this, like, just ask Crookie to do it because Crookie's the best scout I've ever seen, right? And I just had an eye for the game, an eye for patterns and movement, and it was almost like I could tell what was going to happen next without even ever having seen it happen. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It does,
so I just had that. I could just see that side of the game. So one day I was playing racquetball downstairs in the old in Riddell Hall, and Bruce came in and came to the viewing area and asked me to come upstairs to see him. So I went up to see him. He asked me to join his staff. Said start out as manager, work your way up, do all these things. So I went in, worked with him. The next year, he moved me into, a position. And then by my 3rd year with him, I was doing all the individual stuff, and I did it again. And I stopped being a student, where I was just now working only with the basketball team. I was making about, $400 a year or whatever it was. But that's because then I figured out at that point, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a basketball coach. And I just had blind faith that it would happen. And I worked with Bruce for 4 years as an assistant, and then applied for a couple of jobs. And one year I got 2 interviews, and I got hired. And I was 25 years old. And, I'm living I grew up in sort of inner city, on the edge of inner city Winnipeg. And I get this job in New Brunswick. And all of a sudden I'm flying across the country to go to Mount A and be the head basketball coach at 25.
That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I guess at this point, they're not looking for like level 3 certification or anything. Hey, it's, I don't
even think the certification NC
was a thing.
That it happened. Maybe the 1 and 2 had happened. There certainly wasn't level 3 yet, because I was actually part of the first technical level 3 class in Canada. Bob Bain ran it out of York University, and I went and did that class. So I was like one of the first people in the country to have the technical basketball level 3, which is pretty weird, but yeah. So it was a crazy story. And like the first 2 years I coached at Mount A, I coached guys who were older than me.
Yeah,
right? Like I had athletes who were older than me as a 25-year-old, and and that program was it was a really interesting experience for me. For one thing, moving from Winnipeg to Sackville, New Brunswick, like 1,800 residents.
Yeah,
so,
total.
Total, right? So I go to this tiny little town, and there's nothing there, and And Atlantic Canada was way different than it is even now, right? And being there was a strange. I remember when I moved there in the summer, and I still used to drink. I don't anymore. And I remember I went to the liquor store one day, and they had a sign up, and it said, because for the first time ever, they had beer from Ontario. They had Upper Canadian beer, and there was a sign on the wall. And if I had a phone like we do now, we take pictures of things. But there was a sign somebody had written. It said Upper Canadian beer, right?
Yeah.
Because they still called it Upper Canada, right? Or that's how they referred to it, even though it was Lower Canada, but they referred to it as Upper Canada, which was bizarre, right?
Yeah.
Like for a guy from Winnipeg, this was bizarre.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was fun, and Mount A was great, and I had some really good experiences. And my first year, I don't think they'd won a game in 3 years when I got there, or something, 88 losses in a row or something. I go in my first year, and we win, 9 games in the league, beat 3 teams ranked number 1 in the country, and my poop didn't stink, right? Like I was a genius. Especially in my mind, right? Like I was like a really good coach. We made it to 11th in the top 10 poll. We were going to be pretty good. And if we lost to PEI, who had been ranked number 1. I think they were in the top 2 or 3. And then in the playoffs, on a tough call that I don't want to mention his name, a guy who's still around. He's a referee who I know really well, who we talk about this call every time I see him. He's admitted to me he made an error, and that cost us the game. And, we win that game. We're going to nationals. So my first year, I'd be going to nationals with, it was a crazy story. But in the end, I then took my lumps for the next few years. I mean, that league was a good league then, and, still is now. But I mean, we're Dave Nutbrown, Steve Kachalski, Morrison's, it was a league. Doc Ryan was coaching Adele. Like, it was tough. Don Nelson at UNB. And
Nutbrown was around that long, hey?
Nutbrown was an unbelievable coach. People who don't know about Dave was an unbelievable coach.
Yeah.
And
he recruited me a bit when I was at Langara, yeah.
Maybe the best recruiter in the country ever. Handwritten notes to everybody. Like, he was unbelievable. Yeah. But he was a heck of a coach. And defensively, maybe the best defensive coach I've ever seen. People talk about other guys, but Nutbrown was unbelievable. So anyway, I remember beating him when I beat him the first time, and the only time I beat him, I think, and it was, man, it was unbelievable. It was one of the most memorable games that I've ever been involved with. And they were pretty pissed. They were pretty pissed that we beat them.
What can we say about the people at Parkside, especially our guy, Sam Payne? A huge supporter of basketball in our community. The gentleman does many things behind the scenes that people don't know about. And one of those is supporting our podcast from literally day 1. Sam reached out to us and said, hey, I like what you're doing. How do we get involved? And what you can do is find them at any local government store, or come down to the brewery, sit on the patio, sit in the back, listen to the music, come for music trivia night, whatever it is. The wide variety of beer that they offer is second to none. And Port Moody and the Brewers Row is a great place to be. We are so appreciative of Parkside Brewery, we can't even say it in enough words. Head down. We hope to see you Parkside. And if you can't, find a way to support, because they do a lot for us. Cheers. So I'm wondering, 25, what are the things that you're taking from Bruce? What are the things that you've learned on your own? And you're starting out as a coach here. Are you just going for it and kind of learning every day? What are the foundations that you're using? Because I mean, that's a young age, and you're still so young into the coaching game as well, right?
Everything was, I sort of like, and this is an important, this is a question that's going to lead me somewhere important, I think, is that Bruce had been my mentor, and I'd learned basically everything I knew about basketball from him to this point, right? I mean, I liked the game, and I was a student of the game, and I read things and went to clinics and did stuff, but I was so into what he was doing, right? And at that point, really, when he pushed forward with that whole conceptual motion and that type of basketball and looking at basketball differently, right? The players were the runners, the coaches wear shoes. So the players have to learn to make decisions. So your job is to teach them to make the right decisions at the right time, right? So that was a foundation. And that's the foundation of how I've coached my entire career. But part of the other thing was, when I first started coaching, I made decisions based on things Bruce had done and not that I would do. And part of that was because I didn't know any better, right? I thought because he did that, that's what we should do. But one of the things that I learned was I needed to take the foundations and the things that Bruce had done, but then I had to match that to my own personality. I couldn't just be a mini Bruce. I had to be Dave with the foundations of the things that he had taught me. And that's when I became a better coach. But that happened as I got more experience than I did other things, right? And then Mount A dropped the program. I didn't know what I was going to do. And
I was going to say, that's crazy, right? What do you, how many years were you at Mount A? 4 or 5?
Five.
Yeah. And then, all right, we're just no longer going to have this program. And
and it was weird. Because I'd been in Victoria. So they used to have a program called the High Performance Initiative that Ken Shields had done. And it was a great opportunity for coaches. I got to go to the first 2, and then I went to others after. And so they would bring in 10 coaches. We'd be at national team camp. We'd watch the camp. Plus we would get instruction from coaches and then guest coaches he brought in, and there were some people he brought in that were amazing, Rick Majerus and, Del Harris. And it was an unbelievable opportunity. Plus we got to share knowledge with each other. Right. So that was amazing for me. So I was actually at the High Performance when it came out of the paper that I'd lost my job. And when I'd left, they were dropping hockey. Right. And I knew that. So I went out to the High Performance, and then the hockey coach, while I was gone, worked his magic. And by the time I got back, they dropped basketball. So then I was out of luck. I didn't have a job.
You're thinking, sweet, we can use that hockey money and have more money for basketball, right?
That's sweet hockey money to run basketball. Yeah. So then I was, I didn't know what I was going to do. Tim Darling was at Guelph. So I thought, well, maybe Tim wanted me to come and help him. So I was going to go to Guelph and, do some things. And so I packed up all my stuff in a U-Haul and literally started driving to Ontario. And I drove to, my girlfriend at the time was living in Montreal. I stopped and saw her, drove to Guelph, unloaded my stuff in a garage. And I was actually going to be roommates with Chris O'Rourke.
No way.
This is a true story. Yeah, this is pretty funny because O'Rourke and I, end up teaming up together later. So anyways, I go back to Toronto. I'm staying with my aunt. And I knew that the Lethbridge job was open, and I knew that they were interested in me, but I think they didn't want to spend the money to bring me out unless they knew they were going to give me the job. So they offered the job to Mike Havey, and Havey turned them down. Havey ended up later at Windsor. He's an Ontario guy. He was in Medicine Hat College at the time. So he turned them down. So then I think they weren't happy with their other candidates. So this is August 30th. And they contact me and say, can you fly out? And I said, sure. So they call me on Tuesday, I think. Wednesday, I book a ticket. Thursday, I fly to Lethbridge. I interview Friday. Saturday, I stop in Winnipeg on the way home, see my mom, fly back to Toronto on Sunday. Monday is Labor Day. And so they said they'd give me the decision Monday. Well, I don't get a decision. I don't realize it's Labor Day. They probably forgot. So Tuesday morning, bang, a fax comes to my aunt's house. I get a fax. It's a contract. They basically offer me 30%, more than 30% more than I was making at Mount A. So, I signed. They thought they were getting me for a steal. I was like, my God, I just tripled 30% more of my salary. This is pretty amazing. Got the job. So I went back to Guelph, got my stuff, loaded it back up. And that was like Tuesday or Wednesday. And then Thursday, I started driving and I drove to partway. And then I got to Winnipeg like Saturday. And then Sunday, I got up and drove to Lethbridge. And Monday, I went to work. And that was a week after Labor Day. And that's when I started my job. And I lived in a hotel for a month. And, that was it. That was the beginning of my years in Lethbridge and 12 years there. And that community couldn't have been better for me. And the experiences I had there couldn't have been, any better for a young coach.
Were you required to teach there as well? Or did you just start as,
No, okay. I taught there. So I was teaching either 2 or 3 classes a semester there too, which was crazy. So
were there enough dudes to fill a roster? Like, what does that look like?
Okay,
You had to make some calls and see you could pull in last minute. Like,
so I get there, like school's already started for a week when I get there.
Yeah.
And so I get there Monday. I think Tuesday I just had a tryout, and 12 guys rolled into the gym, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we had. And this is crazy. And one of the guys who tried out hadn't started on his high school team. But what was I going to do? Like, I just thought you had to have 12 bodies, like, to start with. So we literally had a guy who hadn't started his high school team playing for us, right? There'd been no recruiting. Nothing had been done. We had decent talent, but there was a real schism on the team. It was a strange time. Olenek had been there the year before. He'd been on sabbatical. And him and Vitry were helping Shields in Victoria. And then Shields took Vitry. So Vitry left Sask and Ken went to Toronto. And that's why the Lethbridge job opened, because Ken went to Toronto. And so I had this team and we worked hard, and there wasn't really a schedule for the pre. Like, it was a bizarre time, but we put it together, and we worked hard, and I got the guys to believe. And remember the first game we get UBC at home with Bruce, right? So now here it is, my first ever Canada West game, and I'm coaching against the guy who taught me everything I know about basketball.
Yeah.
And we play them.
And you have a guy who didn't even start on his high school team.
Yeah, we have a few guys who can't play at all. Yeah. Anyway, so I think they're like 1, 2, 3 in the nation. Like, they're pretty good. So we come out and we're up at the half, and we come out and we're up with like 2 minutes to go. Like, we led the whole way, and we're playing amazing. And we get up 1, and we're up 1 with about 40 seconds or 30 seconds left, even though we don't remember games, And,
of course, yeah.
We're running our full court offense, and the guys are scared. They're absolutely scared, and they all bail out and leave a guy stranded in the backcourt. There's no reversal. Point guard turns it over. Who is it? Johansson gets a steal, layup. Anyways, travels. I could lose my mind. The referees then weren't giving me anything because it was my first year. I got 6 technicals at home that year, for one thing, because they were teaching me a lesson that, to behave and be a good boy. And he makes the layup. We lose after being up the whole game. The guys, basically, all the belief, all the good work, everything I'd done for like 6 or 7 weeks to get them together, just fracture. And it's a miserable season. We beat Sask like 3 times or something. And so I think we were like 3-17 or 4-16. Sask is like, I don't know if they won a game because we beat them. I don't think they beat anybody else. So it was a pretty tough, and like, that was a pretty good league then, right? I mean,
absolutely.
So it was tough, and I didn't really know what I was in for. But then, we worked at it and just tried to get better, and the local talent. And finally, we cracked the local market. Tim Rawlingson was the first big star I got out, and then we just kept developing and building. And in the end, we got to be pretty good at 2 30-win seasons back to back, and that was pretty awesome. And, got Barnaby, had a really good run, with him. I had a, run of all Canadians, Danny Balderson, who was player of the year in the country, Spencer Holt, so it was fun. And we won a lot of games to the point where, I remember in my second last year there, like, we played a playoff game where we sold out in 20 minutes, right? Like, wow. Where people were scalping. I mean, and this is hard to imagine in the 90s in Canada, there were scalpers scalping tickets outside the Lethbridge gym for our games against Alberta in the final, right? Like, it was awesome. But Southern Alberta, it's just a wild place, right? Like, basketball community. Yeah.
Are you suggesting at one point back there that maybe when you played in Lethbridge, you may have got a few calls? Is that once things were established?
Me?
Well, just your teams, yeah.
Well, my teams, okay. We always. I don't want to say we pretended, but we always felt that we never did. We always felt that we never.
Come on,
did.
I played in Brandon, man. Let's not fool ourselves. Yeah.
But over time, you that you do, but you don't like to. You never want to admit it, right? Like, you never want to admit it, and I fought with those guys hard. But it's funny because I think, I mean, I never got kicked out of a game in my entire career, right? And I went 12 seasons without getting a technical on the road. 12 years.
That's pretty
on
good.
The road, on the road, right? But
that's good.
There was a year in Winnipeg where I got 6, a year in Lethbridge where I got 6. Because, I mean, the local guys got sick of my antics, I think, a little bit, you know, and I could be a pain in the butt, you know, and I talked way too much. But, you know, that's just who I was. And you can see that I talk too much because I won't shut up on this either. But let's just say that Lethbridge was a great place, and it was wonderful for me. I coached a lot of great guys there. We had a lot of good teams. I had a guy named Chris Orr who, if he hadn't blown his knee, would have, I mean, he was impactful for us, but it would have, I mean, we were sending him to the national camp. He was going in, he tore his ACL, and then he played with a brace for the rest of his career. 6'10" athlete, kid that he's from Northern Alberta. Came down for a tryout, was this geeky looking guy, comes in the gym with a parka, and I'm looking at him going, what am I getting here? And then all of a sudden this 6'10" monster emerges and just became a phenom. And if we hadn't lost Orr, that team would have been, I mean, we were pretty good as it was, but with him, he was a special player.
And then over those years there, I mean, getting to know the community and building the program and things like that, how did your coaching philosophy or style change? What did you adjust? I always viewed you in the teams that I saw. I think you were more of like a player's coach. Actually, I was listening to a podcast today with Ty Lue, and it's pretty funny. And he says, yeah, I know they call me a player's coach, but those are usually the guys that are playing, right?
There's some guys who played for me who wouldn't think I was, a great guy. But at the same time, I think I was a player's coach because I think that my philosophy and my understanding of the game is the players have to make decisions, right? Players have to play. So you have to put them in positions where they can be successful, right? I think that's one of the keys. And so part of it was, creating an environment where they wanted to play and they wanted to be happy, but also at the same time trying to teach them, right? So we never ran a lot of set stuff. We had some sets. As I got older and I got more experienced, I learned more about basketball, and some of that through the national team. And hopefully we'll talk about that stuff. But, a big part of it was put them in positions, teach them to make the right decision, and encourage them to make decisions and to make plays and to expand their individual skill package so that they get better and better and better. Right. I think that's one of the things that I tried to do with guys, and when, part of it is, we always talk about coaching trees and who's under, a tree. And, I've had a lot of guys who've done things, but when I look at in my time in Lethbridge, the 2 guys who I was closest to, one was Barnaby, who's come on to be, a much better coach than I ever will be. And is an outstanding, one of the best coaches in Canada. For sure. At the youth sports level, for sure, without question. Yep. And then Mike Hansen, who coached at Lethbridge for a long time and did an amazing job there. Those guys were the closest to me of all the players who played for me there. They both went on to be youth sports coaches. Hansen came back and took my job at Lethbridge. And, Hansen was a guy who I recruited from Stephenville, Newfoundland to play for me at Mount A, who then followed me to Lethbridge, right? So that's awesome. To have that happen. Yeah. Both Barnaby and Hansen, I think of them almost as my sons. Like we're that close, right? And that relationship I have with those 2. So to have your 2 kids, in my mind, follow you into your profession, that is important as anything. Yeah. That's amazing. Love that. So I think you're a little ahead of your time in sort of that philosophy of sort of let's create a scenario where they feel comfortable to make mistakes. And then, so what's your approach? And this is a selfish coaching question. What's your approach when you do see the mistakes happen? Are you let's sub them out and chat kind of guy? Is it, let's just pull them over? How many mistakes are they allowed to make? I think it's great. I agree. I've learned, I'm still got years to go, but it took me a long time to get to that point where I was like, you gotta let these kids play a little bit, right? They gotta figure some stuff out for themselves, right? Yeah, that's really critical. And I think part of it is, you can't do much in games anyways, right? I mean, all you do by subbing them on in games is you're wrecking their confidence. The teaching has to happen in practice, right? Now, the rope is different, right? The rope for Barnaby Craddock would be different than the rope for another guy. Right? Yeah, 100%. The rope for Irfan Desajpour was a lot different than somebody else, right? There's a name. Yeah, you let those guys,
Yeah.
I mean, those guys, you let them do what they do, right?
Yeah.
And, you communicate in your relationship with them is different, right? And I used to say to people, like, I would tell players flat out when they came to play for me, like, I will not treat you equally because you don't want to be treated equally. Like, you think you do, but it's not equality. What you want is fairness. You want to be treated fairly because you're not all equal. Because if I treat you all the same, then I'm not really treating you fair.
Yeah, you're not coaching. So, for sure.
So it's not about equality. It's about fairness.
Mm.
And you treat them fair based on what they bring, what they've done, and what they're going to do, right? So it's under that umbrella that you make your decisions around things. And my big thing in teaching was in practice, right? It was always about stopping things in practice, putting people back into positions. And this is where I'm sort of lucky. And I'm not saying I have a photographic memory, but I can remember where people should or were. Put them back, put them through a situation, walk them through the decision they made, walk them through the decision they should make, and then do it live from there. And that was a big part of my teaching process. And I think that's a big part of when you're running that conceptual motion and those actions where it's all about read and react. That's what you need to do, right? And you need to shape, you need to shape it that way. So that was a big part of my coaching. And part of my coaching style was we played a lot every day, right? Mm. And, we did some breakdown, but even all our breakdown, like people would always ask me about drills. Oh, coach, you got drills. I don't really have drills because our drills are all breakdowns of how we play, right? So we did very little actual drill work what you would consider doing drills. Mm. We had drills, but our drills were part of the breakdown of our offense, the breakdown of our defense. And like one of the things that we did I did in almost all the drill work we did, certainly when we had a defensive component, is you would never just do one thing, right? So you would stop something. So one-on-one in the wing, but it would be one-on-one with the wing with the passer. So you'd stop a wing drive, the ball would get reversed. Now you have to rotate and stop a second person, right? Mm. So everything we did had I tried to make it as realistic to as how we played as possible, right? That was a big part of my teaching.
Whatever you're doing right now, listening at work, rolling in your whip, going for a walk, whatever it is, hang on for a sec. You like jerseys? You like stance socks? You like throwback? You like shoes? You like anything related to basketball? Hit up ATOB Ball. And if you're not able to be there in store at Langley Event Center, check them out on the web. And I guarantee you'll find something you like. Give us a mention and you'll never know. Shout out to our boy Jeff. ATOB Ball for life. Love it. Look at this. Free clinic today too. Here we go. Okay, so like mid-90s, the grade 8 yearbook starts to come to fruition for you here, and Canada comes calling. Talk about sort of how that came about, and what it was like to be able to step in on those first few practices. I mean, you had some great memories, getting a bronze medal. Some good stuff there, right? So talk about that.
That's mind-blowing, right? So actually, 96 was my first one. Then for the next decade, I was with the national program. And I don't know, I had like 16 or 17 international trips, 2 world championships, 2 world university games, worked with, junior men, young men, university men, senior men. I got to do sort of all of it, right? So, I mean, pretty amazing. And the kind of experience that guys just don't get anymore at the youth sports, like that sort of has dried up a little bit, So it all started with Coach Shields and the high performance stuff. And I got exposed to the national team and it was just so great. And then Olenek took me on his staff in 96 with the junior men with Peter Campbell, and Peter and I would then spend 5 summers together because Peter moved into the head coaching role and I worked with Pete for a long time. And it was unbelievable. The first team was young men, Maga, Heinrichsen, Mavis. Like that was a really good team. We actually lost Novell Thomas on that team.
Yeah. Was Big Todd there?
Todd was on that team. Yeah. And we played we're in Puerto Rico for the qualifier. We'd done some stuff prior to that.
Was Dave Morgan there?
Dave Morgan was on that team.
I played high school with Dave.
Yeah. He was real good. He was real good starter for us.
Yeah.
And we lost to Argentina They scored in the penultimate possession. We had the ball last possession. Score, we win, we qualify. First, it would be the first time Canada's qualified to go to a age group championship, and we turn the ball over and we don't score, we lose. We end up not going, and it was a heartbreaker. And it was an amazing experience. Coach Donahue was there. It was like awesome, right? Coach Donahue was such a big figure in my life. He'd been really impactful with me. I got to know him. I got to do some things, and he actually shows up like in the 80s a couple of times. I remember walking on the street one day in Toronto. I hear, Coach. I turn around. It's Coach Donahue. Brings me over. I go for breakfast with him and his wife. Next thing you know, he invites me into camp. I spend a week with them at camp every day before they went to the '88 Olympics. When Kuchelski was on that staff, and I'm in the gym really, and it's the team, and they have 15 guys and their staff and me for a week, right? And so that's an opportunity that people just don't get, But so I've had some luck and I've had some breaks, and now this whole national team thing starts to happen. And then in '98, I'm with Kuchelski on the senior team, and we end up, we're going to the World Championships, and that was pretty amazing. And that was a great summer. And I remember, you talk about things. So our first trip was New Zealand, Australia, and we're playing New Zealand in Hamilton was the first game, Hamilton, New Zealand, and then we went to Wellington, and we played them in Hamilton, and they played the national anthem before the game, and I remember I was just bawling my eyes out. It was unbelievable to sit there and have the opportunity. Now I'm representing my country at the highest level. I'm coaching on the national team, which is something I've wanted to do my whole life, and it was just unbelievable, an unbelievable experience. And that whole summer didn't go as well as we wanted, but it was a great opportunity. And then, the next summer, Jay came in and Jay took over the program, and I got invited back. I was the only coach who came back from the summer before. And I worked with Peter on the University Games team in '99. And then 2000, we did the junior men. 2001, we did the University Games again. 2002, I got named head coach. I did juniors, brought Chris O'Rourke onto my staff, and then a bunch of other people came in and out of that staff. And then 03, we junior men, 04, young men, and then 05, young men world championships. And that's the whole sort of the breadth of my 10 years with the national team, all those different things. I've got a couple great stories for you if you're okay.
I was just going to say, other than that moment of the New Zealand and that, hit me with some good stuff here.
I got two interesting stories.
Let's go.
I think that people will let people understand a little bit about international basketball and how different it is, and how spoiled we are in North America.
Yeah.
And both of them are, the two great ones are Mexico stories. I got a lot of other ones that I can't tell on the podcast. I can tell you off air sometime, but these are two I can tell. Okay. So 99, we're on a tour of Mexico, and it's a bit of a renegade tour. So we're going to the University Games. Their University Games team is not being run by their association. It's being run by this agent. And he's taken the team to Spain. We're going to Spain that summer. So we're going on a tour of Mexico. We're going to Guadalajara. Then we're going to Juarez. Then we're in what I like to say, Chihuahua. We go to Chihuahua. And then we end up in Mexico City. Right. So this crazy tour through Mexico. Sure. And all kinds of stuff happens on this tour. But right at the start, first day, we get there, we're there for a day, and then we're going to in Guadalajara. And we go to practice. So we go to practice in the afternoon, and it's in this hall. And it's like a big convention hall or something. And they've just hauled some seats in. But they've built like 5,000 not permanent seats in this building. Yeah. And we go in. And, it's a bit of a disaster, and it's dark, and there's birds all over the floor. There's birds flying around in the thing and stuff. And we're like, it's really dirty and dingy. And they take me, so I'm the assistant. So I go out and they take me to the locker room. So we go into the locker room, and it honestly looks like a bomb had gone off, right? Like part of the wall is collapsed, and it's dirty. And I mean, I just use this word. I'll use it again. I don't like to swear on your podcast, but there's literally, and I'm using literally in the literal way, not figuratively, but there's literally on the walls, right? And I say to the guy, like, we can't be in here. Like, this is this is a no-go. Like, there's no way that we're going to bring our team in this locker room. So there's a swimming pool about 150 meters down the road, and they take me there, and it's in a different complex, but it's clean. It's a nice room. And I say, okay, we're good here. So they go, okay. So we come back for the game at night, and now it's like just a zoo, and it's like a huge traffic jam. We get in, cops bring us in, and the place is packed. There's like thousands of people in this building for this game, and it's out of control. And we go to the locker room. We come back in, so we walk off, and we come back into the gym, and now the gym floor is just shiny and clean. Well, yeah, they cleaned it, but then I don't ask me why, Mitch, but they'd oiled it, so it was like a bowling alley. So you literally couldn't stand on the floor. Like, it was like a skating rink. So I go to the Mexican guys. I go, listen, we can't play here. Like, this is impossible. And then the crowd is, crowd's going crazy, and it's getting to be game time, and they're getting antsy. And I say, we won't play in this environment. So they take out a bunch of towels, and they towel the floor, and they do all this stuff, and they stop, and we go, and it hasn't changed. It's exactly the same. And I say, no, we can't play here. So now they go, and they get, and this is all taking time, right? So now it's like, game's supposed to tip off at 7. It's like 7:30, and, the crowd is, and we're not going to play. So now they go out, and these guys come back in with bags of cat litter, and they dump the cat litter on the floor.
Come on.
And they squeegee the cat litter around, right? And I go out, and I go, no, we still can't play. It's still slick under, like, we can't go. So now I'm starting to panic too, because now, I don't speak Spanish. We don't really understand Spanish. We don't know what they're saying, what's going on. There's announcements, and the crowd is getting tense, right? Sure. So I say to Peter, take the kids to the locker room. I'll stay, and then when we're ready, I'll come and get you. So now I stay. So now they've squeegeed, they've cat littered, nothing's worked. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And all of a sudden, and this is absolutely true, 4 guys walk in with 2 2-liter bottles of Coke each. They open the Coke, they dump the Coke all over the floor. They put more cat litter down on top of the Coke, and they squeegee all that up. And now the floor is sticky, right? Like, your foot's sticking to it. And it's still got cat litter on it. And so now now they say, okay, now we can play. So now it's like 8:00, and I say, okay, and we bring the guys back, and now the guys, and so it's an hour late, and these are young guys, they know what's going on. Most of them, it's their first international trip, and the floor is covered in Coke, and it's sticky, and you take one step off the floor, you're sliding, and the ball is covered with Coke and cat litter, but we play the game, and we didn't play well. But it was a learning experience for everyone. I was
going to say, at this point, you're it's just survival, right? Like, yeah.
And it was crazy. And we played the whole tour, and some other bizarre stuff happens on that tour. We get a bunch of stuff stolen on a flight where they go through our bags, and kids lose runners, and we lose uniforms. But we survive it. We go home, we train, we go to Spain, and there's some interesting stuff happens there. But that's enough of that story. So that's the kind of crazy stuff that would never happen here, right? But that happens. So 2 years later, Peter and I, now we go back to Mexico again. And so we go down, and this is a pretty good team. We've got a pretty good squad this time. I think Kwiatkowski came down from the national team and was with us. Randy Knorr, Richie Anderson, Nick McGlisco. Like, we weren't great, but we were pretty good. And so we go over, and we're in Mexico again. So we play the first game. We're playing their student team, and we just put the boots to them. Like, it's boom, like bang, like we beat them by 20 plus. Like, not. And on the trip, we're supposed to play them and a senior men's team. And then there's the possibility we'll play the Mexican national team in the last game. So the second day, we show up for the game, and the Mexican national team is there, who we're supposed to be playing. So all of a sudden, we're playing the Mexican national team, who just come back from the Central American Championships where they got silver. So now we're playing these guys with our team. And we play amazing. And we lose by 2, I think, in the end, in a really hard-fought game. So now the third game, we're playing outside of town, I think in Pueblo. So we got to go by bus. So we're on a bus, and the bus keeps having problems, and he's pulling over and he's doing stuff. And then the bus driver comes back on, and we drive and we stop, and he pulls over. And this happens 2 or 3 times. And finally the bus stops, he gets off, does some stuff. And our interpreter comes on and says, yeah, we've got a problem. We don't know what we're going to do. We'll find alternate transport to get to the game. We're okay. So on this trip, we had 11 players. Me and Campbell, 13. Jamie Lockington, our manager, 14. Sam Gibbert, trainer, 15. And, we're there and we're sitting on the bus and we're waiting. And it's already game time. And we're still sitting on the bus, and we're probably a half hour from Pueblo or wherever we're going to get to the game. And the game, so we're sitting and waiting. And finally the guy comes out and says, oh, transport's here. So we're like, oh, great. So we get off the bus and we go to get on, and we take our gear and we go to get on. And sitting there is a Dodge Caravan, right? A white Dodge Caravan. I can still picture
one of them.
One Dodge Caravan. And it's got 2 seats at the front, and there's nothing else in it. And we got Nate Dornkamp. I believe.
Yeah.
He's a 7-footer, right?
Yeah.
So we load 11 players, 2 coaches, 13, our manager, 14, our trainer, 15, all our gear, the translator, 16. The 2 people driving the van take the 2 seats at the front. I'm literally sitting between the 2 seats. I can look out. I can see the road through the rust and the holes in the bottom of the van. So there's, I think, what did I say? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 of us, the translator 16. The 2 people driving is 18. And then the bag with the live chickens, I think that gets us to 20. So now there's 20 of us, including the chickens, in this van. And we drive to the game. I get to the game like an hour. Now it's like an hour past. It turns out this is just a couple driving down the road with their chickens going to market or something. The guy flags them down, and that's how we get to the game. And that's not a lie. He must have paid him some money, and they drove this team. So the whole team in the back of a Dodge Caravan, right? All of us, 20 of us with the chickens. So we get to the gym, and the team we're supposed to play isn't there again. It's back to being the student team, because we were supposed to play the pro team. Okay. So now it's a student team. And we get to the gym, no score clock, no 30-second clocks. And it's one of those weird gyms where the scores table is actually on the end and the benches are on the side. You know what I mean? Okay. Yeah. Like, it's so small and so tight that they can't even put the scores table on the sideline.
Yeah.
Right? So the guys have to run to the end to get to sub in. Yeah. So, but there's no 30-second clock, no game clock, no scoreboard, right? So we're doing our best to try to keep track of the score and the time, and the game goes on and we're up, and we're doing okay. But, and we've arrived at the game in a caravan. So we're playing, and now it gets to be what would be the end of the game-ish. They sort of tell us there's 2 or 3 minutes left, and we're up. And the Mexicans,
they sort of tell us there's 2 or 3 minutes left.
Because they never really give us the exact time, right?
Yeah.
Mexicans make a run, they get it close. I think we're up 1, because I could sort of keep, we're keeping track of the score. They come down. They come down. We stop them. We're up 1. We come down. There's probably 2 minutes left. We get to the front court, make a pass, reversal. Referee blows a whistle. We're like, okay. He goes, 30-second violation, because it's still the 30-second clock. We're like, what? Like, how could there be a 30-second violation when there's no clock? And you never told us there was 10 seconds. Nothing, right?
Yeah.
No, turnover. So now the Mexican has the ball. They come down. Guy hits a shot. Bang. Referees blow the whistle, game over, and they run out. So as soon as they got ahead, it was the first time in the game they'd had the lead. They got the lead, they blew the whistle, they ran out of the gym, game's over on a bogus 30-second violation, and now there's probably a minute and a half left on the clock. They don't care. And I'm just like, but that's the kind of stuff that happens when you're out of this country. So not only do we have the great van ride, we get, done in by the referee. Yeah. So that was those are a couple examples of what can happen when, you're out of Canada or US.
So when they do run out, the refs,
yeah.
Are you actually like, oh, well, this is what happens? Or are you like losing your mind? Are you somewhere in between?
Losing your mind, but at the same time, what are you going to do? And you got to look after the guys. Right?
Yeah, you got to get out of here too. Yeah.
And you got to look after the kids because they're the most important part in that situation. And it's a lesson for them to understand what it's going to be like, because a lot of these guys have aspirations of playing pro. And when you get out of some, what we're used to, it's a different world. Mm-hmm. It's a real different world. But anyways, enough of that. And then, the big year, 2004, I'm head coaching. I got to work with me. Greg Francis is my other assistant. And we play the qualifier in Halifax. We qualify for the World Juniors, first Canadian age group team, male or female, to ever qualify for a world championship. Pretty unbelievable experience. We didn't play as well as what we hoped. That was an interesting group. We'd have those kids. This is sort of the third year. We had the majority of them. Levon had been our guy for the whole time. Kingsley Costain, Tristan Blackwood, Sean Dennison, Shane James, Majak Koo. Majak actually got into a fight the game before the event. We played the Americans at St. John, New Brunswick, with Adam Morrison, who'd been the big star at Gonzaga. And Majak and him had a fight with about 5 seconds left in the game when the Americans were kicking the snot out of us. Anyways, we played them in the crossover game in the medal round and got into a huge brawl again, big kerfuffle, where I had words with the American staff. That was sort of I'll tell you that story another time. It's pretty good. But, we end up qualifying and we go to the Worlds the next year. And, we've the majority of those guys are with us. Andy Routens joins us. Aaron Dornekamp, who's, still playing and unbelievably well in the Spanish league to this day. Andy ended up going to the Knicks after that. Levon was still our guy. Tristan, Kingsley, I think that was a pretty good group. Gary Gallimore, who played at X, was our captain. We had Gary for the whole 4 years. I'd actually threatened to send him home from Venezuela the first year. I went from sending Gary home the first year to him being my captain, at the World Championship. And and it was amazing. We went there. We had a great summer. We played in the first, I think there was the first Jack Donahue Invitational, where we'd won. We beat Australia, who were defending world champions. We'd beat Italy there and Japan. We played really well. Go to the Worlds. We just shit the bed and we were awful. In the end, we have to beat Israel to qualify to get into the medal round. And we did. Iran was supposed to be in our group, but they didn't come because they wouldn't play because Israel was there. So we got the win versus Iran as well. I mean, everybody got the win versus Iran, but we got through. And our matchup is the Americans, and we're playing the U.S. And I don't know about you, but I've never coached a game in my life when I didn't think we were going to win. It didn't matter the situation, And to that point, we'd never beaten the Americans, and Canada had never beaten the Americans in a FIBA event head-to-head, national team versus national team, any gender, any age to that point ever. Like, we'd beaten them at the World University Games with Jack had that great team with Jay, and they won against Barkley and all those guys, which was a pretty good team. But that was a university team versus our national team. So, head-to-head, we'd never won. And so we're playing them, and Phil Martelli's the head coach, long-time, NCAA great coach. JJ Redick was the big star. Rajon Rondo was on that team. I mean, there was a period for 10 years where I saw basically every guy.
Future star. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd seen them all, right? Including, like I told you, I talk too much. I'll be fast.
No, this is great.
When we played
Who stands out the most? Let me pause you. Who stood out the most?
Kenyon Martin was the best age group kid I ever saw before he broke his leg.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable. We played him in Spain. He was unbelievable. And then he broke his leg. He was never the player. He was still a pretty good player. For sure. He was the best I'd ever seen. On that group, we'd seen like Chris Paul and who else? That was that age group that we played. Carmelo Anthony was on that age group team that we saw. So they were, there's some real good players. But we played China in in the quarterfinals to go to the medal games. in China with Nora and those guys, with Richie and Nick. And China started Mank Batir, Wang Jiji, and Yao Ming. They went 7'6", 7'2", 7-foot up front. All three guys played in the NBA. Two of them had already played in the NBA when we played them, even though they're still university students. And our biggest guy was Richie, and Nick were like 6'8". Yeah. And we're playing those guys. And we were tied with under 2 minutes to go, maybe about a minute and change. And Randy hit an unbelievable shot to put us up three, a long three ball. And during the ruckus and the commotion, the 30-second clock went off. And the Swedish referee, I'll never forget this to this day, he didn't want to make a call. And he went over to the scores table and he asked the Chinese minor official if the shot was before or after the 30-second clock went off. And the guy said after, and there was no way it was after. But they wiped off our basket. So instead of being up three, we're down three. They come down the front court, and Wang Jiji hits a three in the corner, puts them up three. We come down, miss. And Wang came back and hit a second one back to back. We lose by 6. And if Randy's shot goes in, I'm convinced we beat China in China. And with that, with 3 NBA guys on that roster. And anyway, so that was a tough one. So back to playing the Americans. We're playing the Americans, and we're playing great. But if we do any sort of ball screen action, they're doubling us, and Tristan and Kingsley are struggling. So I put in this action, and we ran the ball screen where Levon would face the rim instead of facing the ball, right? So he was facing the rim, and it was a downhill ball screen straight to the rim. And the Americans had never seen it, and they didn't know what to do, and they didn't know how to guard it. And we got all kinds of stuff off it, and it just it took their pressure off us. So it allowed Kingsley and Tristan to initiate offense, which was huge. So when we ran that kind of stuff, I mean, to the point where I think at one time Tristan came off the high ball. Levon's facing the rim. He comes off like this. People can't see it, but I'm telling you. And Levon sprints straight to the rim because his defender steps out to guard Tristan. And Tristan bounces the ball between Levon's legs going forward, and Levon catches it, goes down the lane and dunks it, right? And I mean, Levon was unbelievable. So at halftime, we're up, and Levon has 20. And O'Rourke says to me, maybe we got a shot here. And I said, well, if Levon can get 20 in the second half, we'll probably cut, right? But I mean, anyway,
what are the chances, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Come out in the second half, Levon gets 20, right? We got to go to overtime, though. We don't even do it. And I'd said before the game to the media, asked me how we could win. I said, if we play a perfect 40 minutes. And then after the game, I said, ESPN South America or whatever. And I said to them, well, I was wrong. We have to play a perfect 45 minutes. And but we did. We played a perfect 45 minutes. And they had 3 shots. We were up at the end. And they had 3 shots at the buzzer and 2 tips. And in the end, they couldn't get it to go. And we held on to beat them. And it was, unbelievable. And when I got home, and I mean, you probably won't want me to say it, but Coach Shields wrote me a letter about what we had done and what we had accomplished. And it was one of the most meaningful things for me. I mean, I came from Bruce, and Bruce and Shields certainly weren't close, but I'll tell you, there's nobody who meant, I mean, Bruce, is my guy, but I mean, Coach Shields is the guy, right? Like in Canadian basketball. That meant more to me than anything else, I think. And I still have that letter to this day. And awesome. And I got a pennant on the wall with the game. The Americans, I don't know if I can show you. The fans, people on the cast won't be able to tell, but I'll show you. I've got the banner that.
There it is.
There it is.
Oh, with the score.
Yeah, everything.
And it says USA basketball too. I love it.
That's the one that they exchanged with you in the game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Pennant. So O'Rourke wrote that stuff on for me, and I've had it in my office wall ever since. And so we beat them. And then the next day we had to play Italy, and we'd beaten Italy earlier in the summer. And I mean, we had a hangover, and not an actual physical alcohol hangover, just a mental hangover. We lost to Italy. And then we had to play Australia for the bronze medal, and we'd beaten Australia twice. They'd beaten us at the tournament, and we played them, and they're defending world champions. And we beat them and got the bronze medal. And I'll tell you, it was, as a coach, what more do you want, right? And, a bronze medal at the World Championships. First medal, it's braggy, but Canada hadn't won a medal on the men's side on a FIBA-sanctioned event since the 36 Olympics. So it was the second medal ever for Canada. And, was it lucky? And maybe it was lucky, but I'll tell you what, that group, we'd had the core of that group together for 4 years. They were a great group of guys. And
you think that paid off in the end?
100%. Yeah. I think, and it's funny, like my relationship with Levon was like so strong, and Tristan had been with us, and Kingsley, and Kevin Francis, Majak Koo, Gary Gallimore. Those guys have been with us a long time, and we've been through the wars together. We've played a lot of games. And then, guys like Andy and Cespedes and Vlad Kuchanin. I was sad that Sean Dennison didn't come that last summer, because Sean had been with us all the way through. And then he played at Santa Barbara, I think, a BC guy, and he didn't make it last summer. But yeah, it was great, But yeah, what an accomplishment! And that was it for me. Like, I was done. I coached at the Maccabea games once in 2013 after I did that, but that was the end of my coaching for the national team. And what a way to go out, right? Like, I couldn't ask for more.
Was that by choice? Was it were they going a different direction? You just were like, it's a grind, right? I mean, when you're committed to coaching and your season is September till March, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
And then what do you give yourself? A few weeks? Like, I mean, you're still finishing off. You still got to recruit in April and May and June, right? You give yourself, 3-4 weeks, and then you're back at it. But then those 3-4 weeks are, doing amazing things. But you're 12 months.
I had a couple summers where I was gone from home for more than 60 days, right? Where we were on the road for 60 days in the summer. So 2 months gone.
That's insane.
Right. And, the shortest one I think I ever did was 4 weeks. But most of those summers, most of those summers were 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. And then, like I said, I had the 260-dayers where I was gone for 60 straight days. That's hard. Living out of one bag, right?
Yeah.
We only took one bag on the road.
Yeah.
I remember I talked way too much. We were in Melbourne, Australia, and we'd been on the road for, weeks, right? Because we'd been in Hamilton in camp, and then we went to Australia. We got a day off in Australia. And it was the first day I hadn't worn something with a Nike swoosh on it for like 5 weeks. It was a Nike free day. It was my first day without a swoosh. I felt pretty good, But I had such an amazing career and such great opportunity, starting with, the opportunities that Jack gave me as a little kid, to Jack giving me as a young coach, to Coach Shields, all the stuff that he did in high performance, and all the exposure that so many youth sports or CIS or CIU coaches got then, that just helped promote the game, support from Olenek, being Campbell's caddy for a while, and then getting the opportunity myself to be a head coach. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more, from this game.
That's awesome. Love it. If you're a basketball player out there in the Lower Mainland, or BC in general, and you're looking for somewhere to play, we have a proud sponsor, and that is PGC Hoops. You can find them at pgchoops.ca. And the thing that makes them unique, and that we're proud to sponsor them and them be a sponsor of us, is it's a true nonprofit basketball organization found in the east side of Vancouver. The mission is cost-effective elite basketball for all. Find the website, take a look, register your kids, register yourself, look for the programs. And if you have any questions, reach out to me and we can contact you with the right people. This is a good program for the right reasons. We appreciate you, PGC Basketball. So much like Canada, you kind of know it's all right, my time's kind of come.
Yeah.
Was it the opportunity at Winnipeg just too good? Why did the decision to leave Lethbridge? Did you feel like you wanted something fresh? And then transitioning to an athletic director role from there, which is pretty cool, right? So, yeah. Well,
I'll be quick. My mom was still alive.
Yeah, right.
I grew up in Winnipeg.
Oh, okay.
I had the opportunity to come home, and there was and you know what? I was getting older, and the travel in Lethbridge was grueling, right? A lot more bus. You couldn't even fly out. Like, we were taking the bus to Calgary to get on a plane to go to Vancouver, right? Mm-hmm. The idea that in Winnipeg, I'd have 2 of my road games would be at Manitoba. So I'd come out of the driveway, I'm turning right instead of turning left. So the travel was much less. And that was a bonus as well. I mean, I took a big pay cut to come, but money wasn't the motivator. And it was a good opportunity. And this is where I grew up, right?
Yeah.
To come back, it was amazing. And then now that I'm AD, like, it's just, and my career's coming to an end, and it's pretty awesome that I've had this opportunity, and the university's had confidence with me. I'm really lucky that I've had great coaches. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, on the basketball side, obviously Michael and I are really close. I've worked with, Tanya McKay, who for a long time, who was, a great friend. So yeah, and my volleyball, soccer, all my coaches, all my people, all my staff. It's been a great way to finish a career, And when I was a kid, you sort of dream that, you're going to coach for so long and then you move into administration, but is it real? And then it actually happened to me. And, it's been, Mitch, I got, hey, would I have loved to win a national championship? Yeah, I would love to win a national championship. Would I love to win 20 national championships like Dave Smart? Yeah. Or what accomplish what other people have done. But, but in the end, I wouldn't trade a second of it, and it's been an amazing run. And like you and I, like we've talked about earlier, like there's all those great basketball experiences and there's all the great experience with people, and you put the two of them together and it's a life lived.
There you go, man. Church on a Monday. I love it. It is true though, right? Like when we're talking about Canada West basketball, like it's so spread out. Like when you're in Lethbridge, I mean, at least say you're UBC, you get the ferry, but it's a grind, right? You're leaving on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, back to back. And they changed it a little bit depending where you are. You got to travel a little bit. You may go to Regina to Sask or Sask to Regina. Back Sunday, either a morning flight or afternoon, and then
Sometimes you're getting off the bus at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Right? Like that kind of stuff is not wonderful, right? That's a side of it. Like, people think it's a vacation. Even getting to Vancouver for the weekend, but like for the players, like it's not. It's literally get in the plane, get to the hotel, wake up in the morning, go to shooter, come back, get something to eat, go to the game, go back to the hotel, repeat, maybe go out Saturday night, fly home. Like that's, as a coach, sometimes I got to go out and walk around and see some things, but they don't. It's not wonderful.
Hopefully play well enough. Coach might give you a Monday off or at least a shooting practice, but really like you got to build for scout because you're leaving Thursday, right? And Thursday's practice is going to be fairly light. Like there's not a lot of time. That's good reflection.
Yeah. It's hard. It's a hard life for those people, like the coaches are working, like they barely get a day off from, September and some of them, till March. And it's crazy. And we're talking, when most universities shut down for Christmas, that's your training.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We used to practice on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. 100%.
And Boxing Day.
Same here. Like I have to tell my wife she knows now, but she still is going to needle me about it. I'm like, we just started going. We can't take 2 weeks off for Christmas. Like we can take 4 or 5. Yeah. And if some kids go away for Christmas, but that's their choice. But like, what am I going to do? We can't just, rebuild. So, and then, and being in a role too, and where I think maybe your coaches that you work with now, you have a good perspective on the understanding of, you're in a lot of situations, you're pinching pennies, right? It's Canadian U sport, but you've lived it and you've had to be behind the scenes as a coach and know what that's like. And I think that experience probably, although maybe that soccer coach or Mikey walks out pissed, like he's being a tightwad, but at least they know the next day when they wake up, they're like, he's lived this. So he's coming from experience, because that also is a big factor too, right? Is finding a way to keep everybody happy, but also knowing that is a limit to what we can do. Yeah. How's that been for you from that side of the things when you stepped over there? Yeah.
It's been good. And I mean, part of it is like their perspective is so narrow and so focused, right? And it should be. That's what you want.
Yeah.
And my job is not to be narrow focused; it's to be broad focused, right? So I try to be that, and I never try to say to them, "I understand what you're going through," or "I understand," but I do, because I've lived your job to an extent, and it may not have been in this exact situation, but I've probably been in something really close. So, I think they appreciate that at least. I lived their life. I've lived their life.
Yeah, good. Awesome, man. You ready to do some fun questions and we'll get you on your way?
Sorry I went a little long. I apologize.
Are you still, I don't, I may not listen to Emmy's episode recently, but did you see how long that one is? It's like 240. No. So don't even worry. You're not even, you're not even
good.
hovering close. Yeah.
Okay, good.
You're way, if me and Barnes and Mikey got a little group message going and put some money on the over under, you'd be way under right now. So it's like the national anthem at the Super Bowl. Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. Music.
Yeah.
Concert. Artists can be dead or alive. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You take whoever you want.
Yeah.
Best seat in the house. Who are we going to? And if you got a couple.
I mean, there's a great concert in the late 70s at the 100 Club in London where the Sex Pistols and the Clash played. I'm a new wave funk guy, and that's where my roots are. So
nice.
that's where I would be. I never saw either of those bands live, and it would have been, that would have been the one for me.
Love it. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you get to see them at all? Like, have you seen this? Or you're saying like if... Okay.
I would love to see those. I mean, I saw lots and lots of bands, and I'm one of those guys. Like, I travel for music, right? Like, I go places to see bands because I love music that much. But those are two bands I never got the chance to see, and I would have loved to see either of them.
Nice. Who's one that you did see that you're like, I'd do a repeat of that, or maybe you have repeated?
Lots. But I mean, one time I saw on one in about 4-day span, I saw the Specials and Madness play. One in Glasgow and one in London. And that was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
A little ska. It was pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay, so this might be a tough one for you.
Yeah.
You're going to be the coach.
Yeah.
Pick 5 guys. But
so I'm coaching. See, my original thought was I could be player coach because I could probably get on the floor for 2 or 3 minutes, and I was going to swap with Barnaby. So Barnaby and I would be co-coach, and we'd both get to play. And the four guys would be Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Julius Erving, and Chamberlain. And I figure I could be on the floor for 2 or 3 minutes because they wouldn't guard me. So I'd probably have enough space that I could either get a shot off or make a pass.
Could knock down a 12-footer maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but those
short corner.
those are my, like, Chamberlain's I think is the best. Irving was my favorite player when I was a kid, and Oscar Robertson and Jerry West. How can you go wrong with those two?
Ooh. Would Barnes pass any of them though?
When you get that, he'd drive and take that Euro hop and get in the middle of the lane,
Wilt be like, do you know who I am, man? Just throw it in here. Like,
it would be the other way where Barnes would be like, Wilt, do you know who I am?
Yeah. Love it. Books or movies?
I love both, but I'm a real book guy.
Okay.
I love the sort of the mystery detective sort of thing. So like Anne Cleves, who does the Shetland stuff, and Michael Conley, Ian Rankin. Those are guys that a guy started reading out, John Sanford, he writes about Virgil Flowers and Lucas Davenport, cops in Minneapolis. So it's really cool because I like it because I know the streets, and they're talking about, being in downtown Minneapolis. It's pretty cool. He's a real good writer. If you like that genre, check him out. John Sanford. He's good.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I just read another book you might like called The Barcelona Complex. And it's all about the building and how Barcelona Football Club grew, and then how they've fallen in hard times.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it's about Messi and how they built the club around him. Yeah. And then how he broke the club financially. It's a really good, it's a brand new book. Wow. It goes right up into COVID times. Jan Coopers, I think he's a Dutch guy. Really, really interesting book. God, they pay those guys so much, hey? Yeah, it's crazy. Messi was making $200 million a year. It's wild. Yeah. Wild. Yeah. Ketchup on macaroni. Ketchup on nothing. Ketchup is disgusting. Fries? No. Nothing. Ketchup, the world would be a better place without ketchup. Oh. Have you had any run-ins with or across Paul Eberhard at all? Do you know Ebs? I know Paul Eberhard. Yeah. He's the most anti-ketchup on a hot dog guy. So usually when I'm having a hot dog, I take a nice photo, and he just is like, "You are a disgusting human being." So the world would be a better place without ketchup. Wow. Yeah. Fair. Okay. Thanks,
Hey, it's your palate. It's your palate, man. Who have been some of the most important people in your life? You've touched on a lot of people, but
yeah, I mean, Bruce obviously impacted my life, right? He changed it. I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have had the career I've had without him. I don't know what he saw in me, but he changed my world, right? My family, my mom and dad, my brothers, who were so influential in who I am. So those are the people. And then I had so many great coaches, right, growing up, and teachers, Mr. Kaniski, Mr. Gartner, Al Kinley, people who were impactful and shaped me and made me want to get involved in sport and coaching. Coach Donahue, like all those people who really shaped me. And it's funny that they're all sort of coaches, right? So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's funny though. Hey, like sometimes in the teaching coaching world, like you got to step back and it's like, do these kids even see who they are and what they can be? Like you're saying, right? He saw something in me that I didn't even see yet, right? And look what came from that, And if he never took that and said, hey, can you go scout it? Go scout the Bobcats for me this weekend. Who knows what happens, right? It's funny how you just need those people in your corner. Yeah.
Yeah. Change my world.
Amazing. Okay. So the Bombers are about to lose to the Lions on Friday night. Thursday night. You sit down on the couch. Is there a bag of chips that you're grabbing to watch the game? Or we're anti-ketchup, so that's anti-sodium. So are we?
Well, we like chips. We like Old Dutch salt and vinegar would be my go-to.
Okay.
But a new one, interesting, that I discovered during the COVID times. Mm-hmm. Canadian Tire has a brand of snack food that they call Frank's or Frank.
Yeah.
And they do a all-dressed ripple that is amazing. And it's so good. And the thing is, and maybe you can help me in this one, why are ripple chips better than plain chips? Because they shouldn't be, but they just are.
They just are. I can't help you there. I can't help you.
Yeah. If I had a choice between any chip that was ripple or non-ripple, I'm always going ripple.
Yeah. Now a non-ripple may get you may have an extra crunch, but it's still all the ripple's better.
Yeah.
I can't believe this guy just said Canadian Tire. I've had them. They all dressed are legit. Yeah.
Are they not good?
They're legit.
Yeah.
They are legit.
Crazy. It's well crazy.
Yeah. 114 episodes. You're the first one to reference Canadian Tire chips. I'm not sure what that says, but it says something, my man. Okay. Last one.
Yeah.
Who's out there? I feel like we've done a good job. We've made it, all the way out east. We've represented kind of Ontario, Quebec, but there's, and I've reached out to a few people. I'm trying to get Ryan Lear, right?
Right.
I've tried to get Spagrud. He just wasn't up for it. But there is these flat plains where, is there someone out there, a couple people that you could connect us and get on the show that would have a good story as well?
Peter Campbell would be one, right?
Okay.
Peter had an amazing career, right? Laurier, Laurentian, national team, men, women, world championships. I spent 5 summers with him on national team at different times. I mean, he's a special guy, and he's funny and he's interesting. So he would be well worth having, right? And on top of that, 2 of his sons, like his actual sons, were university basketball coaches.
Crazy.
Which is also pretty incredible.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. You can make that happen.
Choice. Yeah. I could reach out to Peter for you. Okay. The second one you may want to think, and this one came to me the other night, is Trix Baker. So Trix was the women's coach at Lethbridge when I got there.
Okay.
And Trix was an all-Canadian. Trix coached university. Trix won a national championship. Trix coached national team. Trix's brother played for me at Lethbridge. Her husband was an all-Canadian. Her son was an all-Canadian, played for Barnes. Jordan Baker now coaches in the CEBL. And he's coaching in Edmonton. So she would be an interesting guest. I mean, I don't know if she'd be up for it, but like an interesting sort of span and a look at the game and the women's game, I think would be pretty fascinating.
Awesome. It's actually crazy how many families lineage wise there are that are out there, right? Like I don't know these things, and you meet people and you're like, oh, I wouldn't have known that was Jordan Baker's mom, it's like, it's crazy. Okay. Awesome. I love it. This is great, man. being at Brandon 2000, 2001, knowing that Mikey's under your guidance, like super cool. And it's awesome how the game brings so many connections. Obviously, you got Larkins too, right? Who we've had on the pod, sheepishly, although he did well, but just sort of so many ties. So I really appreciate you being with us. Any sort of last thoughts, ideas, reflections before we let you go, and hope you have a great rest of your summer before things start to, I'm guessing, what, soccer or something starting to ramp up pretty quick here, right?
Yeah.
So you're
playing
ready
next week, right?
There you go. So any last thoughts?
Well, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's been amazing to think about things and to mull some things over in my head. And, and congratulations on the podcast. Like, it's amazing, right? And some of them, Jays, Coach Shields, Don Horwitz, the story about driving, was it a lime green something across from Newfoundland? Just there's been so many great things, and then getting to hear Barnaby, obviously, and getting to hear Levon, and getting to hear Grange, and those people who've been really a big part of my life. And all those people have been a part of my life. And it's really cool. And I mean, maybe for the average listener, they haven't had that direct contact, but you do an amazing job. And just thanks so much.
No worries. And just for the record, we have talked about getting you on. Michael Grange, you don't have that much power. You just, the timing was right. The timing was right. Well, listen, I don't know how much longer you have kicking the can here at your AD job and what's in your future, but I wish you nothing but the best work-wise. And then when that day comes to pack it in, I know you'll find a way to stay involved in something, but I hope you have your feet up at the lake lots and can enjoy all the hours that you gave to the game, can somehow come back to you and your family and just relax. So nothing but the best, man. Solid human being. And thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. Amazing episode. A great guy. We finally made it to the center of Canada here-ish. And it was an absolute pleasure. Thanks to our sponsors, and we'll see you on the next one.